In the previous exercise, I introduced you to the concept of HTML selectors. By the way, Dreamweaver, if you're a Dreamweaver user, Dreamweaver refers to these types of CSS rules as redefined HTML elements or redefined HTML tags. And I kind of like that name for them because that's exactly what we're doing. We're changing the rules. We're changing what it means to be a body or a paragraph or a heading 1 or whatever. Again, it could be anything on your page. It could be a table, a graphic, a piece of multimedia, whatever you got, right? So let me show you some more examples here. You got kind of a brief example in the previous exercise, the body there. We converted that inline formatting. Now let's go a little bit further. What I've decided to do next is I've decided to control all of the paragraphs inside my document. Now what's nice about this, by the way, is we're going to specify the formatting once, and then that formatting is going to apply to every single paragraph element inside my document. Let's go and check this out here. So once again, inside my internal style sheet at the top of my document, what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify the HTML element that I want to control. I would not go period paragraph, or I would not go open angle bracket P, close angle bracket. All I need is just the name of the element. So in our case, it's going to be a paragraph, which is simply P. And then throw in a space and throw in your curly brackets there. And then what we would do at this point is we'd throw in any CSS properties that we want to apply to all of the paragraphs inside our document. So I've decided to throw a couple of neat ones at you here. You can throw in a color if you want. You can throw in a font. You can go a little bit nuts if you want. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to throw a couple of new properties at you here. First of all, text-align. I think we've seen this one before, but I'm going to go text-align, and then this time I'm going to go justify. Do you know about justified text? So in other words, if I flip back to my browser, this is sometimes called ragged right alignment, where the right edge of my text is kind of ragged there. Everything's going to line up nice and evenly with justified text. We'll see that in a second. I'm going to throw in a second property. This is what you and I would call a first line indent, but what CSS simply calls a text indent. So go ahead and type that in, and then throw in some kind of a pixel value. You could try 20 pixels or 30 pixels. I'm going to try 50 pixels, just like this, and then save up my file, and then back over to my browser and refresh. And I see two changes. Number one, I see the alignment has changed. It's now justified. Notice that the right edge of my text now lines up. We don't have that ragged right behavior anymore. And then notice also that the first line, the first sentence of every single paragraph is now indented. And again, that's that text indent. Once again, what you and I would refer to as a first line indent. Now, what's cool to note here, and again, I know these are pretty simple examples, but we didn't have to go through our code and apply this formatting to each paragraph one at a time, as we saw with class rules. Now, if you're taking notes, you might want to jot this down. This is the big difference between HTML selectors and class rules. Class rules, creating them and working with them, involves two parts: creating the rule and then going and applying it, as we saw inside our document. Well, HTML selectors, don't forget, we are controlling what's already being used on the page. So I don't need to tell this piece of text to be a paragraph. It already is a paragraph. I don't need to tell this content to appear inside the body. It already is in the body. So when you're creating HTML selectors, you just have to create them. They apply automatically. You could think of it like that, right? So every single paragraph inside my page instantly takes on the new formatting. And of course, if I go back to my redefined paragraph and I throw in some extra properties and maybe change some values and what have you, then of course, every single paragraph inside the browser would update. And I encourage you to go and experiment and play around a little bit and get a feel for exactly what that's like. In the meantime, though, what I've decided to do is reformat two more HTML elements. We have our heading 1 and our heading 2. So of course, the trick here is knowing what HTML element I want to go and redefine. So sometimes that means you have to take a bit of a trip into your code and go, oh, right, Ontario is an H1 and Toronto is an H2. So then I'd have to go to my internal style sheet and then go and specify those HTML elements. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do an H1 followed by my curly brackets here. And let's see here. I'm going to throw in a color. I want to start getting a little bit of design happening. Not much of a design, but at least something a little more visually stimulating than black text on a white background. So I'm going to throw in a color here. I'm going to go FF9966, of course, preceded by the number sign or the hash mark, followed by a semicolon. And let's see, I'm going to control the font size as well. So font hyphen size, full colon space. And I'm going to make my heading 1s 15 point, followed by a semicolon, of course. Go ahead and save that and head back to the browser and refresh. There we go. So we have sort of this orangish color happening here, almost maybe kind of a peach color there. The font size has been changed. If you want to throw in other properties as well, go for it. If you want to control the font face, you could use font family or text decoration, font weight, font style. You've seen a bunch of these, right? So you can certainly make use of them. But I think I'm going to keep mine fairly simple here. And all I'm going to do to redefine my H2s now, these are my cities, is I'm going to take my entire redefined H1, grab the whole thing, including the closing curly bracket there, copy them, and then paste them, and then simply change this to an H2, and then I'll reduce down my font size from 15, maybe down to about 13. I'll try that. Save that up, back over to the browser, and refresh. There we go, something like that. Now, it doesn't look amazing, but the point here is that we are controlling our HTML elements. Once again, I didn't have to tell Ontario or British Columbia or Prince Edward Island to use this formatting because they're already designated as heading 1s, right? Same goes for all of these cities as well. So we're simply reformatting or controlling elements that are already in use.